This is something I really considered for a while because in the olden days when we were just an Alaskan based agency, yeah, I would because at one point I had two hearing aid dispensary companies in my town. And of course, they were like, well, why is this person getting this level of production? And we're getting this. I'm like, we talked about all this, right? It's really hard to serve two masters. So here's kind of where we sit at it now. We do not offer. However, if another client signs up or wants to sign up in the same service area, we go back to the original guy because we don't want that lack of transparency. So we want them to know, like, hey, so and so has called us and they want us to do some things with this. We don't tell them who, depending on the market size, and we alert them so they can make an informed choice of whether or not they want to keep using us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed by Penji podcast, the podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you on your business journey. I'm your host, Shannon, Penji's partnership coordinator, and I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Tyler Williams from the Mammoth Agency. I'm very excited to have you on today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, I thank you. I'm going to give you a little correction. It's Mammoth for Plumbers is how people find it. My email is the Mammoth Agency.
Sorry, nope. I'll keep it in. No, they'll
Yeah.
they. I didn't do my research. They should know. The people should know. All right. Well, could you start by saying a little bit about your agency and how you got to this point? And yeah.
All right. So, this agency has a long history. It started in Fairbanks, Alaska in like 1980 something. And the reason why I don't have an exact date is because the previous owner, I bought it from him in 2015 after working here for 8 years. Like these walls have been coming to since 2008. And yeah. But basically, I bought it from him and we were a local statewide agency. Um, and then I was like, okay, this is nuts. We're learning every single little business type and nook and cranny of business. And I can't keep the team and grow. Like it just information becomes a problem, like institutional knowledge. So, helped my brother at around 2015 when I bought it, like helped him build his plumbing company, got it to the point where he was the plumbing guy in town and they rocked the market, and then joined my own coaching group and they were like, "Oh yeah, you should niche down." I was like, "That's a great idea and probably solves most of my problems." And guess what? It did. So, pivoted the whole agency, probably a little bit too long of a timeline, but pivoted the whole agency over to plumbers. And now that's our primary demographic. And I'll tell you what, it's so much more fun.
That's actually fantastic. I was gonna ask you a question about niching down because that's something that does come up very often with agencies. Like a lot of people debate over whether they'd think it's a good idea or they think it's not. So I'm assuming your take is that you think it's a good idea.
Well, to some degree, I think everybody's got to make their own choice on it. But for me, what I ran into was I, as the owner, would understand all these little instances of business because I'd been in the game long enough. But when it comes to managing a staff and trying to make sure that they understand it all, yes, you can create briefs and you can have all the stuff ready to go. But somewhere along the lines, if somebody else is niche down, they usually can give better service. So it's either you go only a few clients or you go more clients with more niched in services. And so, because you got to maintain the quality. One of the biggest reasons for me to do it was now I have a fake plumbing brand and I can create all the creative that I want for that brand, give it to the team, and the team can be like, oh, this is a message that our clients can have. We need to reskin and remap a little bits and pieces. But the tactics and the creative approach are on point for what I really want our agency to be known for. It's really hard if you're serving a bunch of different industries all at once.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying. I think that's I guess a familiar take of what people who agree that niching down is important is a good thing. I think that it's helpful to specialize because you can your whole team is on the same page, which is exactly what you said. And then it's also you can guarantee that your work is almost perfected at that point. Like you're so used to being working with similar clients. Like yes, everyone's different, even if they're the same kind of category of person. Um, it's still good to be able to know your client.
Yeah, makes a huge difference. Like now even when I show up to consults, even when I'm talking to clients, when I'm talking to other industry leaders, anything, like I'm more in the game. I understand deeper and we can solve deeper problems too. Like it's not just, hey, we run ads. Hopefully somebody calls you. Like we can now go in and understand what's happening on the back end in a way that we couldn't before, could not spend that much time. We couldn't get that specialized. Now we can. It's awesome. Love it.
So, when you decided that you wanted to niche down and specifically cater to plumbers, how were you able to grow from there? Like, how were you able to take in clients that were only plumbing? Like, did you was it your brother had a toe in the water for plumbing or
Like, how did we get our first few clients?
yeah.
Is that okay? So the first client outside of my brother that came up and outside of another plumber in town, that came out of Chicago, and I started an email newsletter basically and was running some search ads. Like, you gotta advertise to get out there, and it took some time for the traction to come. Luckily, I had a revenue stream with the agency. It wasn't like I was starting from the ground floor, so I was able to just kinda, like, divert some of our advertising resources over here, and then as we get clients, build that up more and more and more, and then it ended up compounding, and now, honestly, one of the biggest differences I would say comes down to, like, consistently making my personal brand a thing too, because they the plumbers that we go after are not like the massive shops with a billion locations. What we want is we want the smaller plumber who's like, "Hey, I don't know how to market, I know how to plumb." And he might have, 3 to 3 to 8 people on staff, like that kinda zone. And what that meant is that I needed to develop relationships with them at scale, and that became a mixture of advertising, like straight up advertising, like Facebook ads, display advertising, retargeting, not lead gen because it was too slow. Um, and going out and making a presence known, just being helpful. If you're
Yeah.
helpful first, people start coming to you. So the first client came from just me trying to be, hey, this is what I know about marketing. This is the initiatives you need to put in play. This is for this kind of person. This is what you need to do. This is the stage you're at. Stuff like that.
I think it's really nice to be able to work with, like, smaller companies as well for that it makes sense that they would need that kind of expertise because they don't there's a lot of people that will start businesses or start doing kind of a trade, and they have a background in something else, like accounting or something like that, and it's really helpful when they go into their business when you have some kind of background in something that's super helpful with that business. But a lot of people don't have marketing experience. They don't have SEO experience.
I think yeah, there's a point. Every business owner, I think, needs to become a bit of a marketer, right? They should understand it, like, they're paying for it. They should at least know what it's for and how it works. But the hard part is when they first start having to go out and get their own customer base, they have no idea what they're doing. Like, they're just like, I bought this thing because somebody showed up at my door. I just got off the phone right before this with somebody who bought into a radio package. And I was like, well, what are you doing in other places first? Because you should be doing that first. And they're like, oh, nothing. I was like, oh, okay. I would reallocate your budget. Like, you should move more into Meta and Facebook ads to try and capture the psychology of the market, and then down the road, sure, it plays a place. But they were just making decisions that they said yes to something they should say yes to maybe in 2 years, not today.
Mhm.
And so they need the guidance. Is really what it comes down to.
And also picking, like, if your only marketing campaign is radio related, I don't know how smart that is. Not a lot of people listen to the radio anymore.
Yeah, on the back with some streaming stuff, but I spelled out, like, okay, here's the problems, here's what you need, and this is what I would recommend. And it's just a lot of people run into business and they don't have context of marketing for 20 years in their heads, right?
Yeah.
So at the very least, I try and be helpful, to help guide them to decisions they need to make.
Okay, so speaking of guiding, once you have obtained a client, how are you able to effectively communicate with them throughout your process to make sure that they're happy while you're doing your work, but also for the final product, kind of?
So we like internally behind the scenes, like client signs up, they go through onboarding. We have an onboarding specialist. And then my client success manager, Mike, is also part of that process, making sure that they go through the steps of onboarding. We get all the accounts connected, we get all the information we need, we start getting things built and out. Once they get done with onboarding, that's when we assign them to an account manager. We're like, hey, this is your account manager. And I am huge on consistent communication with account managers to the clients. So we have mandatory touch points, right? And different clients will sign up for different services, but the touch points are static across all services. It's like, okay, well, you need to report on this because these are the services they have. But so they have 2 touch points a month. One is big, like, "Hey, here's kinda what's going on. We need to discuss, like, make sure we're on target." And the next one is just wanna say hi because we haven't, just wanna make sure that we're still on the right path, like 2 weeks later, right? Um, so but we give all the clients, and all the account managers a phone number, an email, of course, a booking widget. So that way, at any point, the client can reach out and touch their account manager. Be like, "Hey, I got a concern." Because, what that did when we really like made that mapped out with mandatory touch points in case the account manager is busy, but also allowed the client to be able to have their own advocate within the agency, which is their account manager. It opened them up for communication to just be human to human. And that's what they need. That's what they want. Like, these are people you're working with. Treat them like people. I know. So that's our big thing is I don't want there to be any barriers between solid communication and our clients and us. So try and facilitate that.
I really like that. I think that it's also important in building trust with your clients because that's probably trust and transparency, the 2 T's. I think it's the most important thing in agencies, um, especially with when interacting with clients because they're not going to at the end of the day, even if they're happy with the end product, if the process was difficult or confusing or just not even just not pleasant, I they're not gonna you're not gonna get a good review, you're not gonna get a referral. You want them to be happy at the end of the day throughout everything.
And I think there's a lot of disconnects that happen, right? Like I said before, these are people who don't live in this world. So they have to be guided through it. So it's like, okay, well, we can be that. That's customer service. And I think I've seen it and I've been guilty of it in the earlier days of being like, hey, cool, here's your report. And it's like all these stats and things. And like, but what does this mean? And even so, some people are so KPI focused where they're just like, are we meeting KPIs? And it's like, yes, no, that's good to have. But also take a step back and understand like what do the KPIs actually mean about the influence that you have in the market? Like, and because that's a psychological question. That is not a numbers question. And like they influence each other and they report on each other to some degree, but like we're advertisers, we're marketers. Our job is to not just show up, but be convincing.
Mhm.
Like we're supposed to influence. And so it's really important for me that our account managers also come in and go like, we think this is going to build the best influence for you. This message in these spots, this many times, let's go. Right. And so that needs to be stated, or the client tends to be like, whoa, what are you doing? Sorry, disconnected. This isn't good.
Yeah, no, it's it's good to be with them at every step of the process, especially when they don't know a lot about the process. Do you ever okay, this is a curiosity question. Do you ever, have, like, competing plumbers as clients? So, wondering how, 1, competitive the field is, but also if that ever happens, and, like, what do you do in that scenario?
So we do not offer exclusivity straight out. And this is something I really considered for a while. Because in the olden days when we were just an Alaskan based agency, like, yeah, I would, because if we at one point I had two hearing aid dispensary companies in my town. And of course they were like, well, why is this person getting this level of production? Then we're getting this. And I'm like, we talked about all this, right? It's really hard to serve two masters. So here's kind of where we sit at it now. We do not offer it. However, if another client signs up or wants to sign up in the same service area, we go back to the original guy because we don't want that lack of transparency that you mentioned, right? So we want them to know, like, hey, so and so has called us, and like they want us to do some things with us. We don't tell them who, depending on the market size, but and we alert them so they can make an informed choice of whether or not they want to keep using us, basically, right?
Interesting.
So it's like, listen, we don't have a problem with it. Do you have a problem with it? And that way the client doesn't find out one day or see the same creative accidentally run to the same market and like freak out and have a not trust us beyond that. So so the only times where I will make the decision on my own, because all of our packages are flat rate, like it's not like one client will just like pay us a ton more for one thing or another. But what that allows me to do is now I ran into this problem in a small community in California. I had one guy, he's signed up with us, and then 6 months later, another guy wanted to. I looked at the market and I was like, yeah, we can't because you're like the only two plumbers in the market. And there's no way for us to serve both of you without hurting one of you because you are the only people who are trying to get these jobs. So I just walked away from it. It's like, that's fine.
Yeah.
And so I gave him a good referral, said, "Cool, maybe the best agency win at the end of that." Where, you know, but our clients are trying to build something, we're trying to support them doing it. So in that particular instance, that was fine. But if you're in like Dallas where there's like 50 plumbers, it's like, okay, yeah, our two can write with our so I'm okay with that.
It would be crazy if it was, like, a Dallas-based agency that was doing all like, it was, like, 50 of the plumbers,
I
and then
I've seen this and it's a mess.
so one agency doing all the competing plumbers.
Yeah, and it usually happens because the owner is like boots on the ground, like just going out and trying to get people in his wheelhouse, and then he's trying to do the same sort of like scaling that I've tried to do, where it's like one creative goes out to multiple clients, and then they just start folding in on each other, and you're like, but which one had this cool message about your mom calling? And it's like, oh, all of them, and then you've created. So this is the big thing for me is like, if I am the cause of market confusion, that's where I will be like, okay, got to back up. I shouldn't do this. So yeah.
Well, it's important to know when you have to step away, so that's good. I mean, like, a lot of people I feel like would not do that, or would try to, like would be kind of a money first kind of, idea of like, "Oh, okay, well, it's a client's a client," but, you might end up losing them at the end of the day anyway because you're not, being transparent. That's, again, something
Yeah,
that's so incredibly important.
for us, a lot of it comes down because we're so creative focused. Like if it was like, hey, we're just running search ads, right? Or search ads might be a bad example, but sometimes it's like an agency, all they do are tactics. Like, and they don't do messaging. Like they don't. They just say expert plumber in Dallas. Great. Everybody says that. You're not differentiating yourself. So for me, the psychology of the audience we're trying to reach is super important. So because we're so creative focused, that means we have these stock creatives that we've curated and built ourselves. And I can't in good conscience try and like run that out to the same people. But I could see some agencies being like, no, we just handle this nuts and bolts stuff on the back end and it doesn't matter. Okay, fine. That's all right. But for us, I'm like, no, I got an advertising to say dumb things on the internet. I desperately want to keep doing that. So that's kind of the way I do it. And I've built the agency to a point where we can to do that to scale to a point. So
What is the dumbest thing that you've said on the internet?
oh man, I said so many dumb things on there.
Out yourself
Oh,
right
fuck,
now.
I mean, okay, here's one. Um, we had a client call up and he's like, I'm about to say more dumb things on the internet. We had a client call up and say, "Hey, I'm getting a bunch of small jobs." And we're like, "Oh crap." And he's like, "No, I want the small jobs." I was like, "Oh, okay, awesome. Um, why?" And he's like, "Because they turn into memberships for me. The memberships are huge for plumbers. Because that's LTV, lifetime value." And so I was like, "All right, well, let's pull the team. Let's create an ad set just for this." And so we created a whole thing around no job too small, except everyone says no job too small. So we don't want to say that. So what else can you say? So there's two main creatives we created with this. One is size matters, right? And so then we have a shot of a plumber like this, oh, in the background. In the foreground is a hand holding the tiniest toilet. You know me.
Go to that plumber. I would go to that plumber so fast. Mm.
Well, that's the thing. Like, and so there's 2 schools of thought. Like, why would you be dumb and waste people's time? Because people are on the internet to waste time. Like, that's a social media ad. Like, let's entertain and delight while we're there because that's what they went here for in the first place. If I'm gonna push somebody an ad, I don't wanna be an interruption, and I don't wanna say expert plumber in Dallas. I wanna say, "Hey, size matters. Tiny toilets, no problem. We'll take on the small jobs too." So the other creative with it was we had a image of a plumber walking up to a door, and it said, "Fun size plumber available for the small jobs." And the plumber, the door is this big, the plumber is this big. So and then you click through to that ad, and on the landing page, it's a hand holding out like this, and there's a little plumber. And then the tech trace is like, "We call him Mini Mark, and we can't wait to show you how well he can handle the small jobs too." Right? So
Both of these.
him. Full screen him. Mm. So, this is the stuff that I love about advertising. This is why I got into advertising, and marketing and advertising, obviously, like, they're intertwined. But, like, most people don't do this. Like, instead, they're so focused on, like, "Oh, well, we're running these things to KPIs, and we're saying expert plumber in Dallas." I'm like, "Great. You just spent a lot of money being part of the noise instead of part of an impression." And because we have to build influence. If we don't, we're leaving our client in the weeds. So it's just like, okay, we'll be dumb on the internet. That's okay. And what's cool is I showed these things on my consults and I'm like, listen, this is what we do. If you don't like it, that's okay. But we like
Yeah.
to be dumb on the internet and we think it'll push your business farther. Oh,
I mean, that's also important to be transparent with, but it's nice because it kind of ensures that you get clients that, can have fun and
yeah.
will enjoy
Yep.
your content.
It is a like a personality qualification to some degree. Like there's sometimes where you get people that are like, I don't appreciate that. You're like, "Okay, well then, let it fine." Like, there are many plumbers out there. I don't need all of them.
That wasn't funny.
I'm like, "Oh, oh, was to meet if I will. You guys, you
I mean, that's kind of great. I mean, it is like it's important, especially if you're a niche agency to find clients that you enjoy working with, and it's like it's that's very difficult. I think that's one of the most difficult problems that agencies have sometimes, where it's like not even a disgruntled client, maybe, but just like a client that you just don't feed off of each other well.
So in doing the niching down, like, a little bit back to that is I had to make a choice. Who do I wanna serve? And I was like, "Do I really wanna serve plumbers?" And you gotta like, my brother was a plumber, but I was still like, "Man, there's a stereotype out there. Do I is that the kind of person that I want?" But here's the thing, the work that I do, the marketing I create, it's not meant to influence the plumber. That's not the plumber's demographic. What's the plumber's demographic? Essentially my wife. Like, and then I'm like, "Oh, I know this. My mom, my wife, I just have to be dumb towards them." I do that all the time anyway. And so, yeah, but alright, I can win this. And so if anybody's thinking about niching down, don't just consider who you're working with, consider who you're marketing to. Because if you can align both those, and ultimately, you know what I found is plumbers are kinda cool guys, like guys and gals. Like they're just trying to build a business and they're trades focused. They need help and they're fun. Like I could go have a beer with them. It's great. So
I love plumbers. I don't know. Most tradesmen, like anyone that I've needed help on my house with, I have loved. I have never had a bad experience. Luckily, knock on wood, there's probably some bad people out there. I don't know, but you know, I re- I think it's mostly I don't know the customers maybe that are like the problem half the time. I mean, I'm sure that there's so I get like this person's here to help you, like get scooter.
that's the other thing we found is, like, if you have your messaging dialed in, you attract better customers.
Mhm. Like someone's
That's
got a sense of humor.
well, because it puts credibility in your pocket that you're willing to laugh along with them, right? So, what I think happens a lot is people pull in a customer and then it just becomes a price equation. And what we try and do is build credibility and relationship before they ever call you so that way you can charge more. Because we're interesting by being dumb on the internet. So, and a lot of people are like, "Man, all my customers are this way or that way." I'm like, "Well, how are you setting up this in your market?"
Mhm.
And a lot of times it's expert plumber in Dallas or cheapest plumber in your town. And of course, I'll use the price kickers. And it's like, yeah, that'll do it. So
Yeah, you want a customer that can laugh with you. I mean, I'm sure the customer wants a plumber that will laugh with him because a lot of people are probably embarrassed to call a plumber for whatever reason that may be.
it it breaks the ice, really, right? And so it's like then the customer is hiring you because they're also feeling comfortable.
Yeah.
And because think about it, a lot of times it's middle-aged woman, home alone maybe, and you're inviting somebody into the home
Yep.
in order to be in
Mhm.
work on yeah, and yeah, that's the stereotype, right? So we try and help our clients A, not be that, and B, project that they are not that. So
That's fantastic. Well, next time I'm looking for a plumber in Philadelphia, I will look for one with a funny ad. This is which recommendations? Maybe I'll just email you. Hey, or what do you know any plumber? Are you marketing for any plumbers in Philadelphia?
not currently, but if you know of a plumber, by the here, if you get a plumber in your house, just tell them like, "Hey, this guy is weird on the internet." You would do
Plumber comes to my house and I try to sell him something. Very funny.
maybe they'll give you a discount, you never know.
Well, okay, yeah, yeah. Like I've noticed that you don't market yourself well as a plumber. Would you like to? I know this guy in Alaska.
Yeah, yeah, that always becomes a thing too, eh, where, well, alright, I know a guy in Alaska who does stuff like this, and they're like, "What?"
Show him picture.
You're like, "Yeah."
And he's one of the guys that looks at me and goes, "That's offensive. I don't appreciate that. My profession is serious."
Yeah, those bars, I don't need them. But yeah,
Okay, okay. So my last question for you is okay, so something that is very important for all agencies, I'm sure we can all agree, is referrals. How do you guarantee a referral from a customer or a client? I would say.
So, in my eyes, like, honestly, what we've found is clients know that you can't always drive the results that you want or they want, but they'll still leave you a referral if they feel cared for, and this is why the communication is so important. The clients that are good clients will understand that not everything's gonna happen immediately, that there's gonna be good times and bad times. They're gonna have swings in the market, they're gonna have swings in the economy that you're helping them bear. So, the best way to get referrals is honestly being a partner in their business and making sure that you do not, accidentally give them the feeling of indifference. Right? Which I see happen, like, "Oh, no, we meant to contact this person 3 weeks ago." It's like, "Oh, geez, no, they were waiting on an answer. What?" This is so and being humble if there's mistakes as well, right? But that's how you create true partnerships that will stand the test of time. But if you are alongside them, you're treating them well, you're explaining the results that you're responsible for as best you can, but you're maintaining that level of communication, it's all about the relationship. The relationship is what people hang on to because there's a ton of marketers out there who are absolutely terrible at the relationship side. I cannot tell you how many people I've talked to. I'm like, when was the last time you talked to your agency? Oh, 6 months ago. I'm like, oh, geez, okay. Like, I'm sorry. Um, like on our end, we do everything we can to facilitate the relationship. The relationship is good. Then guess what? When you ask for a referral, when you ask for a review, they're way happier to give it. And they might even show up on camera for it. Like, those are the things.
Testimonial. Those are
Yeah,
so great.
it's all the same. Like, it falls into your credibility bucket. Um, but I've found that, like, the clients that we have the best relationships with, if they're going to a conference or if they're part of a coaching group that's for plumbers, and we don't have a seat at that table because why would you let a marketer in, honestly? But, then we often get referred to. And then now I find people hit my calendar and they're just like, "Oh, yeah, no, so and so recommended you." I'm like, "Awesome. That makes me feel loved." And then I try and circle back to the client and make sure that they know that
Mm,
I appreciate that referral. The
yeah,
referral should not end when you get the lead. The referral should end after you say thank you for the lead.
I definitely agree with that. No, that's
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 that's humanity.
That's beautiful, and I agree 100%. I think that it's really important to care about people that you're working with. It's they wanna feel cared for, that's literally the point of using someone else's service for you know
A and on top of that, also go to the account manager who managed the account that referred you and give them some kudos as well.
a good job. Yes, exactly. Also care about your employees. Caring is important in this industry. And then if you don't, you might get customers, but you might not be very happy,
That's true.
and that's not fun.
No, no, it isn't, but, no, I like sleeping, so it's easy. Okay, I'll let you go.
Oh, dang, thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. This is absolutely incredible. I love laughing on the podcast. Sometimes I get to, sometimes I don't. So, the ones where I get to laugh are definitely my favorite. Don't tell the ones that didn't make me laugh.
You are welcome. I love to say dumb things on the internet, as we covered, so this just give me an opportunity to do it. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And to everyone watching or listening, don't forget to like and subscribe to see more professional stories just like this. Really appreciate you coming on with me today. And thank you everyone for watching again.